Good morning, Gamecock fans. Welcome into coffee. Today is Monday, March 3rd, the year of our Lord 2025, and I certainly appreciate you all listening today. Want to get right to it. Lots of newsy things have happened over the weekend, including results of games, championships, sweeps. Yeah, didn't want to talk about the sweep this morning, but let's get right to it. Clemson sweeps the Gamecocks in baseball over the weekend. I think the theme of the weekend for Carolina is probably, some good, a lot not so good. As far as starting pitching goes, middle relief, if you will, for game one with Brandon Stone. There were certainly some moments that they battled. Uh, I think that the bats obviously need to come alive. I think that's the one thing around here that really frustrates people is when the baseball team does not score runs and does not look good doing not scoring said runs. There were some hard hit balls here and there, but at some point, you got to start finding your way. This has been, it's hard to tell when you're playing uh, teams that you should beat. Some of those games get out of hand or whatever, but there were some signs with some teams that you'd expect Carolina to score more runs against that they didn't. That doesn't always carry over, but it did in this situation. And they just could not hit Clemson pitching. It didn't matter who they threw out there either. I mean, yesterday, the 70 mile per hour sliders over and over, and you swinging away at them. And I don't know what, I'm not good enough at baseball to know, to tell you. John Whittle, Jamie Bradford, they'll all talk to you about that. I just know that from y'all's standpoint and from my standpoint, that's the last thing you want to have happen is to have a team that's pretty good at pitching and fielding, and then, but just not not good at the plate. Credit to Paul Maneri for shaking the lineup up on Saturday. It didn't, or Sunday, it didn't work. But hey, I think the bench is a good motivator sometimes. In sports, any coach will tell you that. All the great ones will tell you that. And so we'll see how things transpire moving forward with this baseball team. I think I don't think it's time to panic or I think I had a lot of big picture conversations with people. They want to know, oh, is the NIL enough? Is it coaching? Is it that, they just got beat, guys and gals. That just happened. It's too early in the season to make a determination, big picture wise for anything. I do think that if they continue to play like this, they're going to struggle in the SEC this year because, Clemson's a good baseball team, but there are 10, 11 Clemsons probably in the SEC. I mean, maybe Clemson is like this great team that, wins a championship, goes to Omaha, whatever. But I don't, the SEC's tough. It's just like basketball, in my opinion, and it has been in baseball for a while. And then you add these other two schools that, oh, by the way, they're really good. So we'll see what happens with that. I know everybody's frustrated. Hang in there. The key, I think, is to whatever's bothering everybody at the plate right now, or what the issue is at the plate. You got some games coming up before you start conference play. Just don't make sure you don't carry this over and drop a couple you're not supposed to. Wins always help with confidence and everything else. And then Oklahoma comes in for the opener. So we'll see what happens there. Women's basketball, hats off to Dawn Staley and her team for winning another SEC championship. The SEC this year in that sports, actually, it's a lot deeper league. Just for example, the team that they played yesterday, Kentucky, they got a new coach and they came back, 15th in the country, weren't very good before, and you have them rising. Tennessee's done some nice things. LSU's still tough. Texas and Oklahoma come in and they're very good. And it's a better league. Ole Miss is good. So it should be a little bit more interesting in Greenville, I think, this week with, you're not just waiting around on whoever's going to play South Carolina and hoping they don't get upset. I think that could be a lot of drama. So that's good. It's good basketball, good for the sport, good for Greenville and the Bon Secours Wellness Arena. It used to be called the Bilo Center. Being from the upstate, I like Bilo Center. That kind of fits me. Bon Secours is a health care system, but for those that aren't from Greenville. But I don't want no fancy French name on my basketball arena. I'll tell you that right now. I'm for Spartanburg. Yeah. The Bon Secours Wellness Arena. So a lot of good Gamecock basketball memories in that building, by the way, obviously. Men's basketball won. They slapped Arkansas. Lamont Paris is now 3-0 against John Calipari. So go figure. He beat him at Rupp the first year, beat him down here with Kentucky last year. And then, I mean, that game was 60-28 at one point. South Carolina played great defense. Colin Murray Boyles with 35 points. He went off. He's I think decided to keep playing better and better despite the team's struggles this year. And look, hey, a win is a win. You avoided the offer by beating Texas. It's always good to beat Texas in anything, and I think Gamecock fans will start to realize that the longer the Longhorns are in the league. And then it's always good to beat John Calipari. I mean, the Colonial Life Arena has become sort of a house of horrors for him in his coaching career. He's dropped several games at Kentucky he shouldn't have. The one game he got thrown out of, amazingly enough, in 2016, that was Frank Martin's 25-win team that got snubbed at the end. Kentucky beat the Gamecocks' butt, 89-62. Maybe John Calipari, maybe it's him. Maybe the Colonial Life Arena just hates him for some reason. I don't know. But anyway, nice win for them. They have Georgia, who's kind of on the bubble coming in. The Dogs need a win to kind of stay alive for the tournament. And they're a good team this year, like everybody else. Good team with a bad record. But it's senior night. Nick Pringle got on social media and asked everybody to come out. If you can make it, do it. I mean, these guys hadn't quit. I'll say that. They, at least at home, they haven't. I'm not saying they quit on the road. They kind of wilt on the road. They just don't play well. A lot of teams don't, but they do play well at home. And so go out there, show your support. If you're worried about the future, can only help recruiting. If you're busy, that's cool too. I mean, I'm not sitting here. I'm not one of these blame the fans that if we just all show up and buy tickets to games and hold hands and sing Kumbaya, that things will get better. That's not me. I don't preach in that department. I think in general, crowds are good. And in general, when crowds are not good, it's disappointing. But I'm not disappointed at the fan base. I mean, look, life is so fast now. We all have a lot to do. Time, it's hit me in the face the last 2 years how precious time is. And I look back and see how much I've wasted it with doing things that were counterproductive or just relaxing too much or taking breaks. And then, or even when things come up, like in your personal life, like last week, you look on and you're like, man, it just goes, when you get older, it just, so anyway, my point is without getting off on a sidetrack and, welcome into the world of your emotions and how to treat time with JC. No, without getting off on a sidetrack there, that's, I understand people don't like time, so you got to be judicious with how you spend your time. But if you can make it out, I'm sure the guys would appreciate it. Carolina Athletic Director Jeremiah Donati has a coaching hire to make. His volleyball coach, Tom Mendoza, takes off for Marquette. He's from Buffalo Grove, Illinois, originally, which is north of where I am in the Chicagoland area. Because you kind of wonder, South Carolina to Marquette, he was winning, kind of turned the volleyball program around a bit at Carolina. Had a couple of down years and then bounced back. But I just kind of reading into it, I don't know. I mean, I'm not a volleyball guy. I did see some social media clips this year. They get a good crowd out of those games, and when they win, it's pretty exciting. The crowd gets into it. at the volleyball center. But reading the quotes, Marquette #1 doesn't have a football program. So when you get into the revenue sharing era, obviously, if you're a sport not called football, and I don't know what the Big East TV contract is for basketball, but anyway, you probably have a chance to get some of those dollars more, maybe. Maybe they support volleyball better up there. But what it told me was it's closer to home. It's probably one of the few people wanting to get out of South Carolina and head back to the mighty Midwest. But Milwaukee's probably 55 minutes from Buffalo Grove. It's up on the north end of Chicago. So appreciate Mendoza for doing all he did. First hire. I don't know anything about it, who he will hire. I know South Carolina's former interim head coach is at Georgia Tech, and they were in the top 25. So I don't know if she'll be a candidate or not. You obviously will look back at TCU. I think they had a pretty good volleyball team this year. But we'll see. We'll see what Jeremiah Donati comes up with. And then speaking of women's sports, to round out this wrap-up from the weekend, hats off to Ashley Chastain Woodard and the softball team. Yeah, softball matters in our state. South Carolina's been pretty good through the years. They do have a following. But going up to top 10 Duke and sweeping them, that's impressive. That's pretty good. Actually, somebody, when I had a brief conversation about the softball thing, I was like, yes, Tanner's probably going to hire Ashley Chastain. And this person preferred the Duke coach, to Ashley Chastain. I looked into it. Pretty impressive program they built up there. So anytime you can go up and sweep a top 10 team on the road, I think that's pretty good. And that's for real. But Oklahoma lingers, right? Oklahoma, that's another thing. These schools that came in, Oklahoma, Texas, everybody was focused on football. And I do think, they're obviously two of the top 5 winningest programs ever in that sport. But the other sports are kind of where it's like, Oklahoma's by far the best softball program in the country. And oh, by the way, they have the Women's College World Series in Oklahoma City every single year. So is that fair? I don't know. We'll see. They used to have it in Columbus, Georgia. All right. So I want to tell you about our newest sponsor here on Coffee, because it's almost golf season. You guys are going to really like this. PalmettoGolfing.com is a new company, a Gamecock owned and operated. Good guy. Brandon over there is a talented individual that has custom made Gamecock, Tiger, cross needle points, American flags, the logos. There's some clips and stuff too. Palmetto tree, custom made belts, needle point golf belts. They are fantastic. He's got one. I like this one with the black and the garnet background. I like the American flag one too. He has got some golf towels, tees, all your accessories. These belts, folks, they'll run you about $150 at most places. Right. Bill Brandon's got them for $99.99. Handcrafted, high quality belts. And he's a sponsor here, sponsor on Big Spur and other places. PalmettoGolfing.com. PalmettoGolfing.com. Go check it out. Those are, you won't be sorry. And I know I have a slew of golfers out there, or if you have a golfer in your life and a birthday coming up or something like that. As always, GamecockCoffee.com is a sponsor here. If you're on YouTube, you heard it at the beginning. All the NIL dollars all the dollars from the coffee go to the NIL at the University of South Carolina, which is needed. And also Encapsulate USA. Mine and Mike's Mighty Mushroom Supplements. Encapsulate USA. Use code JCM to get $10 off your first order. Also, any orders over 60, you will get free shipping with all of that. Inside the Gamecocks, the morning show today, later on the Chief Sports Network. Don't forget to check that out. All right, so the NFL Combine's going on in Indianapolis, right? And Nick Emmanwori absolutely stole the show to the point where really a lot of the other Gamecock performers have put up some good numbers. Josh Simon, Rocket Sanders came in at 217 pounds, and somebody called that, like when they were describing it, they was like, "That's terrifying." That he's 217, because that's like, I mean, he played at about 233 last year. Uh, Boy, and impressive there. But Nick Emmanwori stole the show. 43-inch vertical, 4.35 or 4.38 in the 40-yard dash. Rocket, by the way, we're in 4.47, which is a good number for a running back. At 6'3", 228. I mean, absolute freak, right? Um, and then, the discussion becomes, well, what kind of football player is he? When you're talking about a first rounder, you need to be pretty special. In recruiting, there's a reason they do 32 5 stars, because those are the guys that have that, they are projecting, if they reach the list of ifs, they predict that they are going to be first rounders. Nick, of course, was a 3-star guy, so which can be forgiven to a certain extent. Although everybody in South Carolina was telling everybody not in South Carolina that, hey, this kid's special. I guess the lack of a Clemson offer at the time maybe was what did him in. But he didn't jump on the radar until right after the pandemic. Everything was still shut down camp wise, all that campuses. It didn't really open back up till like I guess that spring, right? With Shane Beamer, and there he was, 2020, June of 2021 for the class of 2022. And I remember, I've told this story before. I got a text about him, 6'4" kid from Irmo who could cover like a corner. I was like, nice. And then I got another text. They were like, there's this guy here playing in the defensive backfield. And I don't know why he was playing in the defensive backfield, but he was. That's a freak like I've never seen. He's a junior. His name's Nick Harbor. So that was a pretty fruitful camp period there right after COVID in the summer of 2021 for the Gamecocks. But Nick came in, freshman starter, played well. I know some have some feelings about him opting out of the second half of the bowl game. Honestly, all's forgiven. I think he kind of made up for it when he tweeted at Brandon Cisse. I know I never thought I'd be talking about anything like he tweeted at him, and that made up for what. Well, whatever. That stuff matters. To come to Carolina, they wouldn't regret it. That kind of showed you, well, he's still part of the fam or the team, and whatever he does, obviously, is good for the program. You know, I have feelings about opting out at halftime too, and I would never condone it. I'm not saying it's okay, but it seems like whereas he could have been Juice Wells to a certain extent, he's kind of made up for it. And yeah, that guy, he's not only, the question becomes, what kind of football player is he? Lots of guys contest. And his film's good. It got better and better. I mean, there's some stuff that maybe, he shows up on film that's not perfect. But I think, like one of the analysts said, there's no perfect film. So he's tracking to the first round. I felt like the pros would look at him, a certain section of the pro scouts would look at him and say, he's rare. And rarity helps you a lot, unless you just don't know where to play him. But it's easy. You play him in the secondary, and he can be what you call a rover. They used to have a rover back. He can be a guy that can play in the box on passing down, on running downs, and back out, not like a hybrid linebacker type. He can be a guy that plays safety, can match up with just about anybody on the field. There's a lot of different things you can do with him. And I think when you add all these testing numbers, obviously the scouts love that. And Nick kind of won the combine. I mean, everybody was like, wow, that guy's just a freak. It almost overshadowed the other guys there from Carolina who also did well. This is the best combine I think South Carolina's ever had. I would be pretty much surprised if there was some other combine performance collectively by Gamecock players that maybe top this. And this is good for the program. Like I said, the NFL draft, like I've said before, it's not something that fans are going to celebrate as much as recruiting, because everybody's always looking forward. You don't look back and go, ah, those guys are all good. Ergo, we were once good. Everybody wants to know, are you going to stay good? And I totally get that. But for recruits, this is gold. I mean, this is because you can point to this and say, you come here, it's just like anywhere else around the SEC that puts players in the NFL with big numbers. And, that's something that I think other schools have a legitimate gripe against the Gamecocks for. If you sit there and compare it, oh, well, we had 10 guys drafted this year, they had two. Well, shoot, there's a better math will tell you it's a better chance here. It's not always true, but that's kind of how it goes. So Nick stole the show. Happy for him, happy for the program, happy collectively for all the guys that are competing at the combine. But in the interest of what I just said, who's next? And this is interesting because at times in this program, you've had guys that were sort of like Nick, like a freaky prototype, like a Sidney Rice or Alshon Jeffrey at receiver, Debo Samuel at receivers. Happened at receiver quite a bit. And then they sort of, whatever staff or two staffs or whatever are here is there at the time, they sort of fall in love with that guy. And they go look for body types instead of players. I mean, there's a lot of 6'4" receivers that the staff that coached Sidney Rice recruited, and they did recruit Debo, but they didn't recruit Debo till late. That that weren't very good. They were just tall. I think that the next go around with the next staff, the coach Debo, there were a lot of 205-pound receivers that would come in, and then those kids are going to grow, and then they're like 220 and running 4.7, and you're not going to get off the. I mean, you're not going to get anywhere with that. Those guys end up being tight ends or whatever, and so and that left the receiver room kind of in a little bit bad shape at the end. I think that Jalen Brooks turned out well. Josh Vann turned out well. They ended up getting better, but that was that was something that you notice. You go, well, this guy's built like Debo, but he's a running back. He's a linebacker or something. He's not. Can't play. You can't play receiver. Debo Williams, Debo Samuel is special because he can run. Right. That's his speed is what sets him apart at that size. With regards to Alshon and Sidney, those guys were guys at receiver that could jump through the roof, had impeccable timing. Alshon Jeffrey's work ethic was unlike any other. You're just not going to go find those guys just because they're tall. And so you look at Torrian Gray, and you look at the secondary, and well, who's the next freaky guy in the secondary? And the good news is here, Torrian Gray already has a track record in this department at Virginia Tech. Because there was Cam Chancellor. There's also a guy named Jimmy Williams there. Maybe Jimmy was Whammy. I don't remember correctly. I'm pretty sure they crossed paths at some point. But Virginia Tech had that prototype for the taller guys, and it happened more than once. And it's happened more than once in his career. And then you kind of look at the recruiting. And these players that fit the Nick Emmanwori prototype, like I said earlier, with some of the 6'4" receivers, these guys are big and slow and they can't jump. Or you look at the 205-pound receiver and they lose speed and bulk up too much. These folks are recruiting wise, are some of the better recruits, ranked in the country, first and foremost. And then second, they can move around a bit. Now, will they be Nick Emmanwori? That's tough. That's a special player right there. But I almost don't want to like jinx it or anything, because I don't want to be wrong about this, but on paper, and if you kind of look, there are some possibilities in the pipeline as far as who can be the next Nick Emmanwori and who is on campus already. And I'll start with this guy, Kendall Daniels Jr. You look, he's 6'4", 220 already. 4-star out of Virginia, played all over the field for his high school team. I don't know what he would run. I would like to know, but how fast is he? That would be the comparison because Nick's been the fastest, one of the fastest guys on the team, by the way. Some people, because of some busted coverages, thought he couldn't run. That was never the case. You just get beat sometimes, no matter how fast you are. And that's just how it goes. But how fast is Kendall Daniels Jr.? What's his coverage like? He played in the box a lot. I've mentioned before Brian Doan for 24/7 Sports went to see him, but I was surprised he measured in that big, 6'4", 220 for a true freshman that just got there. That's huge. That's a big dude. Played quarterback at high school like DQ Smith. And I think a lot of times he's the forgotten man because his recruitment was weird. It was like he committed silently. He was one of the quote unquote welcome homes. And then it lasted a long time. Like the period between the welcome home and the public commit, a lot of people had given up on him, like fans and stuff. But he ended up upping with the Gamecocks and taking a visit. For a while, it did look iffy. It looked like he may end up at Clemson or someplace like that. But he's there now, and that's one possibility. And when I say the next dig, we've been through the secondary and stuff for next year. I don't know if any of these guys are going to start next year. I don't know if you'll have a 6'4" monster, 6'3" monster on the back end next year. DeMarcus Leach is not a safety right now. He's from Abbeville. He's playing corner. We've mentioned that 6'3", 183, but he still has that length. And Darren Usher mentioned this on our interview with him. We've improved our length. Length is big. It's kind of a luxury item in the secondary in some ways, but not in others. Like at corner, if you have a 5'10" corner and he's got long arms and can jump and is athletic, he can cover, because obviously physics, you jump up and bite the ball away. Length is great for getting arms and passing lanes. It's good for tackling in theory. And Usher did mention that, and I agree, especially in the secondary. And this is what Torrian Gray has done his whole career. I remember, the guys that weren't 6'3", 6'4", Kendall Fuller, who was a 5-star guy, and also Brandon Faison at Virginia Tech. They were like 6', 6'1" guys, but they had long arms that could cover. I mean, they were long-armed guys. And you see that with a guy like Peyton Dyer, who's committed right now in the 2026 class from Georgia, soon to be likely 4-star guy there at corner. But DeMarcus, 6'3", lean. I've always liked him, and the length was what stood out. He's from Abbeville, South Carolina, already there. Hale McGranahan reporting because he was projected as a safety by 24/7 reporting he's going to be a cornerback. Somebody who's not there yet, who again is kind of a forgotten man because he wasn't heavily recruited, committed kind of early. He's 6'4" though. Chris Hatfield, he'll be in this summer. He's from Lincolnton, Georgia. A player they really liked, and so you kind of look at it, and here's another 6'3", 6'4" guy. My understanding right now is he's a corner. Maybe that changes. Like I said, don't write anything in pen unless you absolutely know. It's like the Eric Berry thing back in the day. The whole recruiting industry was like top corner in the country. Got to Tennessee, Philip Fuller was like, "You're a safety, top safety in the country." So that happens on offensive line and on secondary a lot. So Hatfield will get there this summer, so we'll have more of an update on him. But he's long, and then look at 2026, already committed. And this guy is a freak. He's gigantic. Went to the Navy All-American Bowl, played really well there from a place that puts out the talent, right? South Point High School, Rock Hill, South Carolina, #1 prospect in the state, Jazavian Currents from 2026. I'm going to let you guys in on a little recruiting secret here about the recruiting industry. I think Nick Emmanwori's combine and draft status will cause Currents' stock to rise. It's already high. but they're going to start thinking about that. Well, is this the next freak? They do that. People do that all the time. I think, one of the things they said, and I didn't agree with this because I thought they were completely different guys. Um, Kyler Murray was at Oklahoma when Spencer Rattler committed, and they were like, next Kyler Murray. I guess there are a little bit of similarities. Spencer looks like Shaquille O'Neal next to Tyler Murray, Kyler Murray in a lot of ways, because Kyler obviously is the modern day Doug Flutie at about 5'9", 5'8". But yeah, so that happens. And I hope. Just watch that. Watch the recruiting rankings with currents as it relates to Nick Emmanwori. And then there's another one in Rock Hill at Northwestern, uncommitted, who there's some crystal balls predictions in for the Gamecocks for him tomorrow in Watkins from Northwestern. Here's another little recruiting secret that I'm going to tell. A gut feeling. Don't be surprised if some of these schools like Georgia, Texas A&M that are in on Watkins turn up the heat a little bit because of Nick Emmanwori. It's subconscious in a lot of ways because you make all these tiny thousands of little decisions in recruiting in college football because there's thousands of players and there's a bunch of guys. I mean, one of the most overrated things is, well, you don't have very many commits. Well, you could have 25 commits if you wanted them tomorrow. Just call them up. Hey, you have guys that want to commit, but your thing is they're not good enough. Some of them end up being good enough. Most of them probably not. But so you have to sift through everything. And so things like this that happen on a national stage subconsciously can fine tune your decision making process there. But the two kids out of Rock Hill obviously do have a lot of links. That's 5 players who are like 6'3" and above who could potentially, at least 4 of them are pretty safe bets. 3 are on the roster. Well, Hatfield's not there yet, but Leach, Daniels, they're already there. Hatfield's coming in the summer. Currents is solidly committed. And then, if you get Watkins, that's 5 guys. So one of those guys probably will pan out and be pretty good. I think chances are. But no, that just goes to show you there's a lot of these types of options. And I just don't believe that Torrian Gray, with as long as he's done it, and done it at a high level and done it at places that aren't named Alabama or Georgia or places where it's not easy to recruit, but places where you could be a little more selective and find exactly what you want. He did it at Virginia Tech 10 years. And Virginia Tech was really good at finding players, a lot of times better than some of the players that were highly rated within their state. But he's proven that he can take players that aren't highly rated and develop them. He can take players that are highly rated and develop them. He can take a guy that's a mid 3-star, has a chance, and develop them. So I think that the Gamecocks are a little bit better positioned, given his track record and what he looks for. And boy, if they can get some of the, let's look into the future. If they can get some of these guys ready to roll, that's a lot of length, a lot of freakiness in the Gamecocks secondary down, in the late 2020s. Gee whiz, the late 2020s, man. Oh gosh. So once again, I want to tell you about PalmettoGolfing.com, or remind you about PalmettoGolfing.com. Gamecock owned and operated. Just go check them out, man. They're awesome. And it's about to be golf season, obviously, down there. Stay tuned for Inside the Gamecocks, the morning show. I'm sure there'll be a lot of requiem or review or whatever R word you want to call it today with JB and Phil and Whittle. And then Phil and I will be along with the show from 12 to 2. We'll talk a little baseball, a little big picture stuff like we always do. Chop it up. We appreciate each and every one of you joining us every day. And tomorrow's coffee will be interesting as well. Already got some topics going in the old mind or on the old notebook on that. And certainly thank everyone for listening to Coffee. JC Shurburtt, Signing out. Holla at you later.